all.
That means it was recorded.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
If it stopped.
No, it wasn't. It was on pause, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so back to Parshas Lech Lecha Revi. I'm going to demonstrate to you what the Rav is unique. He is unique. That you know already. A unique gadol. He was an unbelievable gadol who had a perspective that no other Rosh Yeshiva, no other Torah scholar I have ever seen. Nobody had his perspective. His perspective was a universal perspective. In particular, the Rav believed, and he's going to demonstrate this in this story, that we, the Jewish people, have an obligation, a commitment of that we're members of a collective called humanity. Well, you know what? That brings obligations. That brings responsibilities. That means we have to share our talent with the world when it fights collective universal issues, peace, war, pollution, etc., are our issues just as much as the non-Jewish world. And he was unique in that sense. And he's going to demonstrate that that is one of the lessons that is embedded in this story of the 4 kings versus the 5 kings. Okay, so let's take a look. We have to get ourselves, rooted in the text itself. So let's take a look and quickly in the text. And it seems to be a very technical text at the very beginning. Vayibimei Amrafel Melech Shinor, page 60 again. Perek Yudalid, Pasuk Aleph. It's going to be 24 psukim, the battle of the 4 kings and the 5 kings. Remember, the 4 kings are going to take. I don't see. No. Oh. Okay. It's not coming up. No. I don't see it.
Maybe she's using the wrong link or something.
Tell her I don't see her. Okay.
Try again then.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. I don't know. Okay. Let's continue on. Okay. Vayhi bimei Amrafel melech Shinor Arioch melech Halasar Tidal Omer melech Ilam v'Tidal melech Goyim. So you have a list, and it happened in the days of Amrafel, king of Shinor, Arioch melech, king of Elasar, Tidal Omer, the king of Elam, and Tidal, the king of a nation called Goyim, believe it or not. That is the nation's name that Rashi points out. That's the nation's name. Asum milchama, they battled. Who did they battle against? Esbera melech Sodom. Here we go, right? We have the king of Sodom, the Vesbirsha melech Amorah, Shinav melech Adma, Shem Aver melech Tzavoyim, and melech Bela Hitzoar. So you have 4 kings battling 5 kings. Among the 5 kings is Sodom. Kol Eile Chavru El Emek Hasidim Hu Yam HaMelech. So where did they gather? They joined in the valley of Sidim, now known as the sea, the Salt Sea. Okay, Yam HaMelech. Shtei Mesrei Shana Avdu et Kila Omer. This is an important pasuk. This is a very important pasuk to understand what's happening here. Shtei Mesrei Shana Avdu et Kila Omer Ushlosh Esrei Shana Maradu. In the 12 years they served Tidala Omer. In other words, Tidala Omer is the major king. He is the head of the 4 kings. And he goes to battle. He causes this whole problem because he demanded everybody worship him, if you will, bow to him. And they did. Well, look at what happens. 12 years they did. They served Tidala Omer. So he's the major power of these 9 kings, right? You have 4 and 5, so you have 9 kings. And then for 13 years, they rebelled against him. They had enough with this Kedila Omer. So they go to battle. Okay. Pasuk 5. So what happens? In the 14th year, Tidal Omer and the kings who were with him, his allies, came and struck Rephaim at Ashtaroth Karnaim, and Zuzim in Cham, and Emim in Sheva Kiryatayim, right? that hachori b'haraham seir ad el paron asher al hamidbar. Pasuk 6. And the chori in their mountains of Seir, as far as the plain of Paran, which is by the desert. So you'd have to have a map to get a picture of this battle. But the Ramban simply says, don't get it wrong. This is a massive battle. This is going from, the Ramban says, Nachmanides says, this battle goes from Hebron all the way to Damascus. That's covering an enormous area in the Middle East, isn't it? In Eretz Yisrael, from Hebron, Ramban says, get your bearings here. It's a battle across an enormous span of land, and he says, don't get it wrong. When you read these psukim, when you're reviewing Parsha or you're listening to the Kriya, you think, oh, 4 kings battle, 5 kings. It happened 1, 2, 3, all over, finished. Avram went. He fought for Lot's safety. He got safe. That's not true. Ramban says it takes not only, it spans an enormous geographic area, it spans a lot of time. This battle was going on for a long time. These 4 kings were fighting the 5 kings for a considerable amount of time. The Ramban doesn't tell us how many years, but it was a considerable amount of time. Okay, so it's not a 1, 2, 3 story. So they're fighting. Pasuk Zayin 7. Vayashu vayavu el ein mishpat hi kadesh vayaku es kol sdei amaleki v'gam es amori hayoshe bechatzon tamar. So Pasuk 7. What happens? They then turned back and came to Ein Mishpat, which is in Kadesh, and they struck all the territory of the Amalekim and also the Amorites who dwell in Chatzon Tamar. Pasuk Ches. Vayitze melech Sodom, melech Amorah, melech Admo, melech Tzvoim, melech Bela, Hitzoar, vayarchu itam milchama be'emek hasidim. Pasuk 8, and the king of Sodom went forth with the king of Amorah and the king of Adma and the king of Tzvoim and the king of Bela, Hitzoar, vayarchu itam milchama be'emek hasidim, and they fought in Emek Hasidim. The Laomer melech Elam v'Tidol melech Goyim v'Amrafel melech Shinor v'Aryoch melech Lasar arba malachim et hachamisha. So the 4 go to battle against the 5. Ve'emek Hasidim be'erot chema v'Yanusu melech Sodom v'Amorah v'Yiplu sham v'Nisharim heru nasu. Pasuk 10. And the valley of Sidim was full of bitumen wells, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled and fell into them, while the rest fled to the mountain. In other words, they get massacred. Right? They get overwhelmed by the 4 kings. The 5 kings can't hold the battle. That's what you've got since so far. And the 4 kings are so powerful, and the 5 kings are getting shattered, that Pasuk Yud Aleph is important. They seized all the wealth of Sodom and Amorah and all their food, and they departed. The 4 kings wipe out the 5 kings so bad that nothing's left to the 5 kings, right? And now the pasuk here. They got the major hostage. They got the one that's going to cause the story to be told. So it seems, right? And they captured Lot and his possessions. And who's Lot? The Torah puts it in there just in case if you forgot. Avram's nephew, but it's not just in case if you forgot. Everybody understood. The 4 kings understood. They got their man, right? They got the Gilad Shalit of his time, right? They got him, and he's worth a lot. That's why it's telling you. And by the way, he's Abraham's nephew. We got the gold, right? And so they left, for he was residing in Sodom. But by the way, what did you think? Just stop for 2 seconds. What do you think the Torah is telling us? V'hu Yoshev Bistom. We knew that. Well, you know that already, that he lives in Sodom. You know that from earlier, right? That they split at the beginning of the Parsha. In an earlier Aliyah, we saw that Lot and Abraham couldn't live together because Lot wanted something that Abraham couldn't give him, namely a pleasure, for the pleasures. That's all he wanted. He wanted luxuries and pleasures. Now, Abraham couldn't give that to him. So they split. They parted. Correct? Why do you think the Torah is now telling you? This is, by the way, Abraham's nephew, V'hu Yoshe Bistom, and he lives in Stone.
Maybe that's why.
What?
Maybe that's what caused all these problems for him, because he decided to go to such a terrible place.
Okay, great. Is there any other? I don't deny that. I I'm looking for something a little different that is going to come out. And that is, what do you think is going on in the mind of Avraham now that he's told his nephew has been taken captive? Wouldn't you think that he could easily say, that's his problem. I told him not to go. He went. What am I putting myself at jeopardy? V'hu yoshev b'stom. That was, in other words, I think the Torah is telling you what could be an excuse for Avraham not to go and put himself into danger and fight for his nephew's freedom, correct? V'hu yoshev b'stom. He chose to be in b'stom. But I agree with what Ruchama was saying, but I'm just adding, and you'll see it's important in a few moments. Pasuk Gimel. Now, the palit. What's the palit? A fugitive. That's what somebody unnamed, an anonymous person, comes to Avraham Ha'ivri. By the way, here he's given an appellation. Avraham is known as the Ivri. V'hu shochem be'elonei Mamre, and Avraham lives in Elon Mamre. Achi Eshkol, Achi Oner, v'hem ba'alei brit Avraham. And Abraham has allies too, by the way. That's what this pasuk is telling you. Abraham is living with who? Elon Mamre, Achi Eshkol, Achi Aner, and they're part of a block with Abraham. Abraham has allies too, 3 allies. Vayishma Abraham kinishba achiv. Now Abraham hears, he's being told that his nephew has been taken captive. By the way, what is his nephew now called in the Torah? Achiv. Not his nephew, it's called Achiv. Achiv is a very close relationship, right? Okay. Vayorik es chanichav, hadivarim, vayorik es chanichav, yilidei veto, shmona, asar, ushlosh meos, vayudov, adan. And here, and he arms his chanichav, it's translated as his disciples, his army. He puts his group, right? So Avram puts together his whip, who have been born in his house. How many? 318. So he's going to go against the major force that had been proven to be powerful and ruthless, correct? They've wiped out Sodom. They've wiped out the 5 kings. He's going and he's put it together, an army of 318, and he pursues the 4 kings as far as Dan, which is all the way in the north. So he's going all the way in the north. And he and his servants deployed against them at night and struck them. In other words, what are you told? Avram has a strategy on how to fight. He's not just going into battle like a loose cannon. He has a strategy. He's going to attack them at night, and he does. And he pursues them as far as Chova, that's what it says, Chova Hashem Yismol ad Damasek, all the way north of Damascus. That's where the Ramban gets his perspective, right? It's Hebron all the way to Damascus. This is an enormous battle. So he pursues them. Vayoshev es kol harachush, v'gam es lot achiv u'rechusho heshiv v'gam es anashim v'esam. And Avram is successful. He brought back all of the possessions. He also brought back his relative Lot, and with his possessions, as well as all the women and the people that were taken captive. So he doesn't just go for his own relative. He frees all of the hostages as well, correct? And he lets them go back with all that they own. Now, Pasuk Yud Zayin, everybody's with me? Vayetze melech Sodom likroto acharei shuva me'akot et kedla omer vet hamlachim asher ito el emek shaveh hu emek hamelech. And 17, the king of Sodom went out to meet him. He has to thank him. He's saved Sodom, hasn't he? He saved Sodom. He wants to go and meet him after his return from defeating the Omer and the kings that were with him in the valley of Shaveh, which is in the king's valley. Malkit Tzedek, now we come to a new personality. This is the spiritual leader of the people. Malkit Tzedek, Melech Shalem, Hotzi Lechem Vayoyim V'hu Koneh Lekel Yom. Malkit Tzedek then goes out and brings bread and wine. He is the priest. Who's Malkit Tzedek? He's the priest of God, the Most High. Vayavrachehu, and Malkit Tzedek blesses him. Vayomer, and he's Vayomar, and he says, Baruch Avraham Lekel Oyom Koneh Shamayim V'Horetz, Pasuk 19, Yutes, and he says, blessed is Avraham of God Most High, maker of the heaven and earth. He gives a bracha, right? this spiritual leader, Melchizedek, who's the king of Shalem, which is really another name for Yerushalayim. He's the king, and he blesses him, and he gives this bracha. Ubaruch kel oyon, and then he gives a second bracha. He blesses God. Ubaruch kel oyon, Hashem yigein tzarecha b'yodecha, vayitein lo ma'aser bakol. And blessed is God, the Most High, who has delivered your foes into your hand, and he gave him a tenth of everything. Vayomer melech Sodom el Avram. Now Melech Sodom tells to Avram, Tein li hanefesh v'harachush kachloch. Please give me the souls, the hostages that you have freed, and you can take all of the possessions. Avram makes the famous statement, Vayomer Avram el Melech Sodom. Avram says, my dear king, I didn't go to battle so I could become wealthy. The truth is, God owns everything. I'm not even interested. The next pasuk in michut v'atzroch now v'mekach mikol asher loch v'lo torani asharti es Avram. I'm not taking anything from you. I'm not taking from a shoelace to anything, right? I shall take nothing from a thread to a shoelace. So no one will say, you made me wealthy. You didn't make me wealthy. Everything is owned by God. The truth is only that the young men get food. They need to get food. And the men who accompanied Aner, Eshkol, and Mamre, they should take their portion. End of story. So what do you have here? You have a fascinating story of 4 kings fighting 5 kings. 4 kings overwhelm 5 kings. Lot is taken captive. Avram is informed. Avram goes to battle with a small little army. He's successful. He redeems them. And then when Sodom wants to thank him, he says, I don't need anything. I don't need anything. I'm not taking anything. That's the story. The Rav wants to know, why in the world is this story so detailed in Parashat Lecha? How do you define Lecha? What is Lecha? It's the journey of Avram and Sarah, right? It's the formational journey creating the Jewish people. This is their journey from Ur Kasdim to Eretz Canaan to create the Jewish people. Why is this story here? Is this story just a story to tell us that he was willing to fight for Lot's? No. The Rav sees that in these 24 psukim, there is so many other lessons. So let's take a look at, the Rav doesn't go pasuk by pasuk. So I'm going to build the Rav's analysis and the lessons that he teaches. Take a look in pasuk Aleph. Vayihi bimei Amrafel. He says, you have to know, pasuk Hey tells you who's the real power. It's Kidla Omer. Kidla Omer needed the other kings to pay tribute to him, which sparked, he was so, in this story, who's the powerhouse? The powerhouse is Kidla Omer. And he's driven by power, and he's driven by a sense of he needs to be worshipped. And when he's not, everything explodes. And that's exactly the story happening here. The whole story is because they're not paying enough tribute to Kidla Omer. And that sparks the conflict. When one reads this, one assumes that this has no relevance to Abraham at all. It's Kidla Omer's story, isn't it? No, it's indeed the first lesson being taught in the story is that. Number one, just like Avraham, the Jew is often thrust into international conflicts that we have nothing to do with. Lesson one, don't think that you can live in an isolated society that has nothing to do with the world. Let me just close the door behind. You think that you can live in your little Dalet Amos 4 cubits, not lesson one? The Rav points out, wake up. You are part of the world, and you're going to be thrust into international conflicts that seems to have nothing to do with you. The Rav reminds us that during the first temple, right? The empires of Bavel and Mitzrayim, of Babylon and Egypt, fought. And before we knew it, the Jewish people were caught in the middle. They were fighting, Bavel and Egypt were fighting, and who gets caught in the middle? The Jews, right? When it came to Bayesheni, the Rav point out, Rome's ambition to conquer the world, and who gets caught in the middle? The Jews. right? I just returned from, and I went for 6 days to Italy. You go to the Arch of Titus, you see it. You see it all over Rome, right? The Jewish impact. Remember, Rome replaces Jerusalem in their theology, right? It's a replacement religion. We get demoted. We're rejected by God, right? And they replace us in their theology. So Jerusalem of Europe is where? Rome. Rome replaces Jerusalem, right? So Rome's ambition includes, the Jews get involved in it, right? Then comes the Gaonim towards the Middle Ages, early Middle Ages, unwittingly the Muslim conquest. And who gets caught in the middle? The Jews. And over and over and over again in Europe fights, wars, who gets caught in the middle? The Jew. Unwittingly, we get caught in the middle. Lesson 1. With this battle of the 4 kings against the 5 kings, Avram came to the realization that the Jew will be involved in conflicts that are not his own making. He doesn't want to be involved in those conflicts. He's going to be forced into them. Because of the moral and ethical principles that we live by, we will be thrust into battle to help our brothers around the world whenever they get caught in these battles, even if it puts us in danger. We're going to have to, that's lesson number 2. We're going to have to go and help our brothers no matter where they are, because there will be battles where we get caught in it, our relatives get caught in it, and we're going to have to help them. No matter, the Rav would say, I'm living here in Los Angeles, and I hear across the world, across the globe, a Jew is in trouble. Suddenly I feel for him. It's the uniqueness of the Jew. Suddenly I feel for him. That's my brother. It's Achiv. Isn't that what the pasuk called? Lot Achiv. He's my brother. He's my relative. That's all. That's lesson number 2. But this wasn't easy for Avram, by the way, to swallow. Bought into, he doesn't make up, are not his making. So what happens the next story right after this story? The next story is the Bris Ben HaBesarim, the covenant of the parts. What is that? That's HaKadosh Baruch Hu promising not only the land of Israel to the Jew, but something even more important for Avram and for us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu promises in the words of Tehillim, Perek Tzadi Aleph, Pasuk Tesvav, chapter 91, verse 15, Yikraeni ve'eneu imo anochi v'tzara achaltzeu v'achavdeu. When he calls on me, I will answer him. I will be with him. God is saying, I will be with him in his distress. I will rescue him and will take him on and make him honored. This is why our sages taught us that Israel, when we went into exile, so did the Shekhinah, so did the divine presence. HaKadosh Baruch Hu promises Avram right after this story of Lot, because it's an interesting question. Why does the Bris Ben HaBesarim happen right after this story of Lot? Because Avram wakes up to the realization, you're telling me I'm going to get caught in international conflicts that have nothing to do with me? How am I going to, and I'm going to have to go fight and defend my brothers all over the world? How do I do this? How do I exit? HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, not only are you going to get Eretz Yisrael, but anytime you're in trouble, I'm there by your side. That's what the Bris Ben HaBesarim is all about. Am anochi imo bitzara. I am with you no matter where you're going to be. In any trouble you have, HaKadosh Baruch Hu promises Avraham that he's going to be defended. Okay? Lessons that we learn at the very beginning of this story, according to the Rav. Then take a look. Pasuk Aleph and Pasuk Beis. Let's Vayim b'mei Amrafel melech Shinar aroch melech alasar tidol omer melech Elam v'tidol melech Goyim asum milchama espera melech Sidon v'espirsha melech Amora Shinav melech Adma v'shev ever melech Tzvoim u'melech Bela hitzar. The Gemara in Eruvin, he says, whoa, what's the Torah doing here? What's the Torah? We're getting a story about 4 kings of Isaac. Why do we need to know this? The Torah is not a history book. The Torah is not, right, a memoirs. What is the Torah? A book of morality, lessons that we have to learn. What are what lessons do you learn about the 4 kings from the 5 kings? So the Gemara, the Rav points out in Eruvin, Nun Gimel Amid Aleph 53a, describes what this, you have to know what this battle is all about. What's the 4 kings and the 5 kings? The Torah is describing 2 military blocks, 2 distinct alliances motivated by different world views. Each group, the 4 kings and the 5 kings, have different worldviews, and they're fighting it out. And the Jews caught in the middle, right? Chazal claimed Amraphel was Nimrod. Nimrod. We know who Nimrod is. Hamirid es kol olam kulo. He's the one who leads the entire world against God. It's a rebellion against God. The Rav put it succinctly, and I'm going to quote the Rav's words. This block is a group of people who are intoxicated by their own material success and technology. The 4 kings were intoxicated by their own material success and technology. This was the generation of the Dor Hafloga, the generation of the Migdal Bavel at the end of Parshas Noach. Remember, they built the Tower of Bavel, right? This is who they are. They held that man reigns supreme, that applying his mind, man can conquer the universe and dethrone the creator. They were power crazed and they were power intoxicated. Block 1, group of 4 kings are intoxicated by power. Their worldview is man can control the world. Man can create, it doesn't sound familiar? Man can do whatever he wants. AI, he can do whatever he wants. He can control the world and he can dethrone God. That's group 1, 4 kings. What about the opposing block? They're led by Sodom. They were motivated by a different worldview. What's Sodom's motivation? It's called pleasure. Pleasure. In the words of Eov, in Perek Chav Ches, Pasuk Ches, they pursued the dust of gold, the Rav calls it. This block represented the human quest for unlimited pleasure. You see what's happening now? You have 2 different worldviews, and they're clashing. One, the 4 kings, power intoxicated. The 5 kings, pleasure intoxicated. And they clash not only as enemies, but as 2 world outlooks. Who is going to rule? Is it going to be power or is it going to be pleasure? And they're fighting. Now, Abraham sides with whom? Neither. Abraham doesn't have an interest in either. Abraham is creating a whole different morality. He really rejects both. But lesson number 3 of this story is the Jew has to be pragmatic. He has to be totally pragmatic. Why? I don't agree with either of those sides, but one of them has my nephew. So what do I have to do? I have to gain his freedom. So what am I going to do? I'm going to have to side with people that I don't really agree with because I have to be pragmatic. I have to win the battle. And that's what he does. He's going to fight on whose side? The 5 kings. Correct? He's going to fight on Sodom. Does he agree with Sodom? Not at all. The Jew may very well often just have to be pragmatic, which, by the way, is a lesson that should resonate with us to this very day. Now, look, even now in Israel, right? We have to be totally pragmatic. What is our relationship with this country called the United States? If you have the ideologists speaking, tell America to take a walk. You tell America to take a walk, you've lost your most important ally. That's absurd, right? The Jew has to be pragmatic. Avram's teaching us the Jew has to be pragmatic. He has an ideology. He has a worldview. He disagrees with both the 4 kings and the 5 kings worldview, but he has to side in this battle with whom? The 5 kings, because he has a goal. And what's the goal? To get his nephew home. We have to have peace. We have to get the hostages home, then we have to be pragmatic. This story resonates with me so much. This is unbelievable. This is what we've just went through, isn't it? So the Torah is telling us.
You also have a power-hungry group, and you have I don't know, hedonistic might be a little strong, but certainly pleasure-hungry West.
Yes, 100%. And you have to side at times with one or the other, not endorse them. You're not endorsing their view of world. Because I'll prove it to you, because the Torah is going to call Abraham by an appellation. What is it? Ivri. We'll get to there, right? The Torah threw that in. Avram or Ivri? What are you telling me that here now? Okay, but we're going to get there. Okay, but so far, what the Rav has demonstrated to us is that this is not by accident a story that's being thrown in just because Lot was taken captive. It is a map for our history, our eternity, right? It is a map on how we're supposed to battle the world, how we're supposed to live with the world, how when we get thrown into battles that we don't want, how do we react? Got it? Okay, continue on. Go now to Pasuk Hey, the Rav. I'm just giving you, again, the whole view of how the Rav reads this, and it's unbelievable. Take a look at Pasuk Hey. So on the 14th year, they all rebel against him, against Tidal Omer. He wants everybody to bow down to him. The four kings led by Omer were so powerful that they made great advances. What you're being told in this pasuk, the Rav points out, is the four kings with Omer leading it are so powerful they make enormous advances on the eastern side of the Jordan River. They're going all the way to Damascus. Remember that. Wherever they would go, and you should know this, you have to understand what you're reading between the words. The Rav understands. To read these psukim very carefully. Tidal Omer is a ruthless king. The four kings are driven, though. I said, they're power intoxicated. What does that mean? The Nazis were power intoxicated. What do you do when you come into a town? You wipe them out. Oh, they're my enemy. You kill men, women, and children. That's who these four kings are. These are ruthless people. They're driven to control the world. We've seen this before. We've seen this in our history in the 20th century, right? We know what power intoxicated means. Power intoxicated means you come in and you destroy a world. That's exactly what this pasuk is telling you. Wherever they would go, the Rav points out, they would kill the population. They encountered and conquered territory. They telling us that even though we know them from Devarim, Perek Beis, Pasuk Chaf Aleph, that Rephaim were great and many and tall, they were powerless against Kidla Omer. Kidla Omer is a Nazi. That's what you're getting. The vision that we can understand is that power-hungry type of person, and his allies are filled to be a powerful war machine. Okay? Go on now. So you get the picture of what's happening. Jump to Pasuk Tes now. Now the 14th. Es Kidol Omer Melech Elam v'Tidol Melech Goyim v'Amrafel Melech Shinor v'Arioch Melech Elasar Arba'a Malachim et HaChamisha. You have the four kings against five kings. Sodom and his four allies, because that's going to get you five, were positioned. Where were they positioned? In a very fertile delta, and they had a large army. The four kings had a large army. The five kings had a large army. I would tell you have four kings against five kings, who should win? Five. How did the four kings? So Rashi, the Rav points out, answers our problem. The four kings were driven by power. The five kings were driven by pleasure. Who do you think is going to be a mightier army? Power. Exactly what you're being taught. The four kings are driven because they want to conquer the world. They are power crazy and they're motivated to be stronger. And that's exactly what they do. They become the more powerful bloc. put in the Rav's words, they were disciplined to be a military power. What was wrong with the five kings? They got sidetracked. They wanted pleasures. They became soft in the power. They suddenly reduced their armies. Their military budget got reduced. Oh, why? Because they got sidetracked. We have a better goal, right? The five kings had a better goal. What was the better goal? Pleasure. Well, if you're going to allow yourself to be a pleasure-driven, isn't that a lesson for America today? You don't dare reduce your military. Because if you do reduce your military, there are always going to be enemies out there that are power-driven and that will want to conquer you. And if you become soft and you don't keep your eye on the ball, what's going to happen? You're going to have a five kings against four kings, and the five kings will get trounced by the four kings. Correct? Another lesson in this story. Don't allow, though you would think the five kings have a bigger army. America is a big army. Don't you dare become soft. Don't you dare become an isolationist country to the point where you allow your army, well, I don't have to worry. Oh yeah, you always have to be above your enemy. You always have to be militarily stronger than your enemy. Okay, next. So you get the picture of what's happening here. You get how the Rav is viewing this whole story with numerous lessons to be taught, isn't he? It's not just a battle in history. Then somebody comes, then Pasuk Yud. What happens in Yud Gimel? Vayavo hapalit, vayaged leAvram ha'ivri. Okay? Vayavo hapalit. Who is the unnamed fugitive that informs Abraham that his nephew Lot has been taken captive? Who is it? Chazal in the Gemara in Nida, Samach Aleph, Amud Aleph 61a suggests that it's Og Melech HaBashan. Who he's not given a name, Vayavo hapalit. But Chazal wonder, who is he? And Chazal say, King of Bashan. The Medrash in Bereshis Rabbah says that Og was motivated. Why was he motivated to get Avram involved in the battle? Not because he was interested in gaining Lot's freedom. That was not his motive, but because, and this keeps on reappearing in story in Lech, Avram is married to a gorgeous woman. Right? Avram, he wants to take Sarah for himself. That's the way the Medrash understands it, the way the Gemara understands it. He wanted Avram to be killed so that he could take Sarah for himself. That's possibility one. But the Rav then suggests that there might have been another motive that Og was driven by. Og was intimidated by the power of the four kings. Remember, they're power intoxicated, right? He was intimidated by them. And he felt that their manifestation of power had to be stopped. Well, how do you stop power? Power against power? And Og realized it's not working. The five kings can't defeat the four kings. The four kings are more powerful than the five kings. So how do you stop power? Well, he came to realization, the Rav realized, that you have to have something beyond just power. And Avraham has it. Avraham has another secret. It's called spiritual leadership. It's called a motivation to exist. When you have a motivation to exist, when you're driven by an ideology that is a moral ideology, that's the only way you can stop power. Because now you're invested. Avram was invested because he was trying to create a new world outlook. And Og perhaps saw that, and that's why Og is the one who comes to tell Avram, get involved. It's not just to get freedom for his nephew, but it's because Og Melech HaBashan wants to stop these four kings that are so powerful. Got it? Okay. So now, what else happens in this pasuk? Avram is given an appellation. He's called Ivri. Well, important lesson in this story is found in these two words, if you will. Rashi says Ivri because it indicates that Avram was an immigrant to Canaan. He came from a different geographic area. His hometown was Ur Kasdim, which is on the other side of the Euphrates. But this doesn't explain why the Jewish people are called to this very day Ivrim, does it? Why is God called in Shemos, Perek Gimel, Pasuk Yud Ches, Elokei HaIvrim, in the story of Egypt? Why is God called the God of the Hebrews, the God of the Ivrim? And Yonah, well, Yonah, we just read it just a few weeks ago. Yonah, what did he say? He say, Ivri Anochi, right? When he had to identify himself. In other words, it can't simply be an allusion to a geographic location on the world globe. It has to mean something else. It has to contain another meaning. What does it mean? Abraham and all his descendants, you know what it means? We stand on a different side of the world, if you will. The world is on one side and we're on another. We adopted a new world order, a new morality that the world didn't understand. We're going to teach a new morality taught to us by Hashem. The fact that we were separated from the rest of the world is what is being taught by Avram Ivri. The words of the Rav, I quote him. The Jews have crossed many rivers, lived in many lands, but in the spiritual sense, we have remained rooted over the river. On the other side, with a heritage of sanctity and purity. That is what we're being told. We're different, and we know it. By the way, they let us all know it as well, right? All the time. You're different, and they do know it. But that is who we are. No matter what, we're the Jews. We're Avram Ivri. Then it tells us that this tells us something, another lesson that's very important in Jewish history. We have allies. We do have allies. We have a most important ally now. We have America on our side. We couldn't have done what we did in the Middle East after October 7th if we didn't have the United States on our side. The United States is the most important ally that you could possibly have. At that time, the Torah is telling that Avraham also had allies. He had 3 allies, right? This is a lesson, Aner, Eshkol, and Mamre. We had allies to go to fight. And Rashi notes that, by the way, Rashi says in Perek Yud Ches, Pasuk Aleph, that when Avram is about ready to do the Milah, he consults with them. He consults with his allies. What should I do? How will we react? You have an ally, you got to develop an ally. You got to make sure he's your friend. That's another lesson, a very pragmatic lesson to us. This is what I call the third lesson from the story, a lesson that the Rav repeated on numerous occasions in different venues. The Rav believed strongly that the Jew was not to divorce himself from the world. The Jew is a member of humanity. The problems of humanity, war, peace, political stability or anarchy, morality or permissiveness, famine, epidemics, pollution, transcend all societies, religions, and ethnic groups. We must, he taught, be concerned and offer our talents to the resolution of all of those problems, because a stricken environment, he would say, both physically and ideologically, can wreak havoc upon all groups, and the Jew is part of all groups. The Jew can't isolate himself in the Dalet Amos Shel Beis HaMedrash. That was what the Rav believed. He honestly believed, of course, the Jew's major focus is Torah, clearly, but he can't be so oblivious to the world around him. But you have to think also, the religious parties in Israel, in the Knesset, can they only worry about the religious issues of the country? No, they have to worry about the other issues that confront all people. Correct? That's our major argument with the Haredi community now. Why are you not involved in the army? Not everybody has to sit in the Beis Medrash. There are many that are not sitting in the Beis Medrash and are off doing other things and not serving in the army. It's wrong. It's outright wrong. It's not for me only to say. I mean, this is the attitude that what is it? Right. Well, I'm sorry.
They're afraid they're not going to be Baalei Torah. That's what they.
Yeah, but
That's why
they have a weak Torah education, right? They have a weak Torah education if that's the case. You know, you have to participate with all of the issues of the country. You have to be a member of the community. That's what this is all. That's, by the way, the Rav points out, this is the philosophy of Judaism. We see it. Sukkot, how many korbanot were brought on Sukkot?
70.
70. Why? 70 nations of the world. We prayed during Yomim Noraim, the Rav points out. You open your mouth. There are numerous universal themes in our prayers. We're not parochial. There are numerous tefillos. And by the way, the highlight of Mincha is what? A universal story. Yonah. It's a universal story. What's it doing there? On Mincha, the holiest day? Because the Jew has to be a member of society. To be honest, I never heard any other Rosh Hashiva, any other Gadol B'Torah speak like the Rav spoke about this obligation to the universe, to the universe.
Good morning.
Okay?
How are you?
I am good. How are you?
Can
Good.
you
I wanted
mute?
to suffer. I'm reaching
Can
out
you mute,
because
please?
we were trying to send a
Hello?
wire for the $2,500 payment.
Okay. Yeah, I muted. Okay. Continue on. So now the Rav jumps to Pasuk Yud Daled and he sees Vayishma Avram ki nishba achiv. Right? Avram is told that his kinsman has been taken captive, and he armed his trained men. This moment is simply amazing in the story. The Rav is stunned by Avram's response. Why? Because Avram he was willing to put himself in danger with his small little army to go fight for the freedom of his nephew. This is amazing because none of us would have been shocked if Avram would have responded, it serves Lot right. I warned him not to go to Sodom. Now he's going to have to eat his own decision, right? He's going to have to live with his own decision. Lot was the one who rejected everything his uncle Avram stood for. And he chose to be the one pursuing pleasure and not Avram's covenantal fellowship. This teaches us another lesson. A Jew must feel, the Rav points out, a Jew must feel duty bound even to Jews who have abandoned their religion. They may very well no longer be Shomrei Torah and mitzvahs. Do I still have to go fight for them? Yes. Yes, I do. The Rav also added that Avram rescued Lot not only because of his love for his nephew, which is totally understood, but because of the prophetic insight that in the future, our destiny is going to be intertwined with Lot's. The Messiah is going to come from whom? From Lot's descendants, Ruth and Boaz, right? Okay, that's another reason. You never know how Jewish history is going to unfold. You can't say, hey, I'm not having anything to do with him. This story is teaching us that lesson as well. Go to the next pasuk, pasuk Tesvav. Vayechalek aleim laila, hu avodav vayakem, vayudfeim ad chova asher mismol ad Damasek. And he pursued them until Chova, which is to the left of Damascus. Read correctly this pasuk, and it paints for us that this war of 4 versus 5 kings happened quickly over a short time span. Not at all. That's what we think. Reality is that it was over a mass span of land, and it was drawn out. The Rav suggests there are 4 lessons that he wants to learn from all of this, outside of what I kept on pointing out. 1, the Jew is often caught in titanic events between warring powerful blocks, and he cannot be the outsider. The Jew wants to be the outsider. He is always entangled against his will in great events. Lesson 1, be prepared for that. You have to know that. Lesson 2, though Avraham could not agree with either side, he had to be pragmatic, right? He had to choose one. In this case, he had to choose the side that was fighting to gain Lot's freedom. Lesson 3, this story teaches us a lesson the Holocaust taught us as well. When caught in the whirlwind of history, There is no difference in the eyes of the non-Jewish world if you're a frum Beis Medrash bacher or if you're a free thinker who doesn't wear tzitzis and never puts on tefillin. Meaning, we don't care if it's Avraham or an assimilated Jew like Lot. You're Jew. And Jew, we're not asking you if you're observant, if you're a chassid, if you're a member of the Aguda or the Mizrahi or Likud or Labor, it doesn't matter. You're a Jew. Lesson 5, Avram must realize his destiny is one of loneliness. Such is the lot of the Jew. That is what is being taught in this story. This story, 4 and 5, is so powerful because of this. Finally, let's wrap it up and see the very end of the story. So Lot is taken free, right? He's gained his freedom because his uncle went to fight for him. Okay, now take a look at Pasuk Yud Ches. U'Malkitzedek melech shalim hotzi lechem v'yoyin. And Malkitzedek, the spiritual leader of the non-Jews at that time, he does what? He comes out to greet Avram with lechem v'yayin, bread and wine. In antiquity, a victorious army, the Rav points out, was a dread to encounter. You never wanted to be in the path of a victorious army as they were retreating from a battle. As they're going home from a battle, they viewed nothing as sacred, and everything was theirs. They could steal, rape, and murder on the way back from a battle. And that we know that. We know that from history. And that's exactly what victorious armies did. Something happened differently this time. Avram's army of 318, right? Well, that's the Medrash, right? But Avram's army, they were different. Although the soldiers were coming back exhausted, hungry, they didn't enter any cities to plunder them. They touched nothing belonging to others. That is why Malkitzedek does what? He comes and greets them with food. Lechem v'yayin. He wants to give them bread. They're exhausted. And he realizes, wow, this army hasn't gone and plundered any other cities. They're coming home empty-handed. They're not taking spoils with them. He came out with food to feed the warriors because he understood that Avram's soldiers were unique. They were different. Rashi notes that this was the way decent people would greet warriors who were hungry after battle. They would come out with lechem v'yayin. But so often, the armies of the ancients, through modern history, returning armies would plunder cities. They would rape women. They would take whatever because nothing was sacred. Avram, Malkitzedek realized, whoa, Avram is coming back with a unique army. And then Pasuk Yutes, Baruch, so Malkitzedek does what next? Vayivarcheu vayomar Baruch Avraham lekel elyon. What does that mean? Baruch Avraham lekel elyon. The Rav notes the wording is wrong. It should have been Baruch Avraham. Avraham should be blessed mekel elyon, from God, not lekel elyon. That means to God. Who's being blessed? Is Avram being blessed, or is God being blessed, or is God blessing Avram? Right? So he points out, no, Lekel Elyon makes a lot of sense because Malkitzedek was blessing Avram that he would be a success in everything he does in bringing God's presence to the world. And Avram would be the agent that would bring God into the world. So Avram was Lekel Elyon. Malkitzedek realized Avram was an unbelievably powerful personality because he was the agent of God in the world, and everything that Avram would do would bring what? Praise to Hashem. Exactly. And then the next pasuk, Ubaruch Kel Elyon. Who's being, so the Rav again says, whoa, this is out of order. The first pasuk was a blessing to Avram. The second pasuk was a blessing to God. Shouldn't it have been to God first and then to Avraham? Shouldn't it have been inverted? Right? If you first bless, Melchizedek is a spiritual leader. Who do you think he should bless first? God. and then Abraham, the human being. He blesses first Avram and then God. So Melchizedek should have blessed God first. No, Avram. So why the inverted order? The Rav explains that finite man can't honestly bless infinite God. Melchizedek realizes, I'm going to be able to bless God. How do I bless God? I, finite, and God's infinite, can I bless? Can I daven? That's the question, really, right? How do we pray? We're finite, God's infinite, and we're asking the infinite to take care of us? Doesn't make sense. So rather, what's being expressed is that man has a role in this world, and Melchizedek understands that. He's a spiritual philosopher. He understands that. And this is to help reveal God's presence in the world. Avraham's assignment was to make God's presence known in the world, and Melchizedek understands that. He understands this unique personality. He is yet to encounter anybody like him. What Melchizedek was doing is first blessing Avram that he be successful in disseminating God's philosophy of the world throughout the world. That's what he's saying. You should be successful. Through Abraham's success, God would be blessed. That's how you bless. Finite man can't bless God. What finite man can do is bring God's presence into the world. Once that was achieved, then you've blessed God. Got it? And Melchizedek is whom in this story? Melchizedek, yeah, I'm talking Melchizedek, without any midrashim, Melchizedek Su. The religious figure of the time of the non-Jews. Melchizedek represents the religious figure of the world, a philosopher, correct? Okay. And who does he encounter? Somebody that he's amazed to meet, Abraham, who is on par, if you will, if not exceeding his stature. Abraham is so impressive to him because Abraham is not only a religious personality trying to influence the world, but Abraham is a totally pragmatic person who's able to go to battle, who's able to engage the world, right? And he's a powerful individual. That's who Abraham is. Melchizedek's very impressed, right? There's not a division. I think that that's what's important. This story is teaching us the religious persona has to be involved in the world. That's what this story is really teaching us. Abraham is the religious persona par excellence, and he's involved in the real world, and he tackles problems on a pragmatic level, correct? And finally, Abraham, at the very end of the story, Pasuk Chaf Beis, Vayomer Abraham el Melech Sodom. Sodom wants to give him the spoils. What does he say? He teaches his Sodom a lesson. Hey, who are you to give me spoils? Those doesn't belong to you. It doesn't belong to me. It's God's. God is Kel Elyon Koneh Shamayim V'Aretz. I have a little minig, and my wife and I have a little minig that we do when we land safely on a plane. When we come down to, and I say, Baruch Kel Elyon Koneh Shamayim V'Aretz, right? God, the one who is in control of heaven and earth, and I've just landed onto earth. But I say these words, Baruch Kel Elyon Koneh Shamayim. Every time I land in the plane, I thank Hashem. Yon Koneh Shamayim V'Aretz. You're the one who is in control of the heavens, and you're in the one who. And thank God I'm back on earth. Right, safely. Okay, that's our Kodesh Baruch Hu. What Avram was teaching us at the very end, he was teaching Sodom. He said, God owns it all. Koneh Shamayim V'Aretz. God is the one who owns everything. It's not for you to tell me that you're giving me. You're not giving me anything. Hashem gives me everything. He owns everything. It's the same story by Hannah. Hannah gives Shmuel her son after she gains a son back to Eli. Why? Why does she give her son to be raised by Eli Kohen Gadol? Because she realizes Shmuel is a gift from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not mine. We gain our right. That's what the Gemara teaches us by right Beria and Meir, right? The famous story of Beria and Meir. right? That she had to teach her own Rabbi Meir, her own husband, the great Tana, the lesson of, tell me, our children, are they ours? Or are they loaned to us by God? It is. It's a gift. Everything is a gift from HaKadosh Baruch.
It's like
I'm
what
sorry.
the hostage's mother said when Hamas called her, said, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do more to get your son back. And he was shocked when she said, he is in God's hands, as are you. And he was like silent, and then he said, Kol hakavod to her.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly the lesson. So this story, inserted in the middle of Parshas Lecha, seems to be totally, what is it? 4 kings, 5 kings? Well, now we've studied it through the eyes of the Rav. Wow. It's a story that has so many lessons that reverberate, in particular, watch the hostages come home, right? It's really a story that is so powerful for us, that resonates for us more than any other story. And it teaches us all of these lessons, that we are supposed to be religious people, but we're supposed to be involved in the world. We're supposed to influence the world. We're not supposed to bury our heads only in our religion. Our religion is to guide us how to act in the real world. That's what this story is really telling us. And Avram becomes the model, doesn't he? Avram becomes our model of the religious persona, the religious leader who is totally involved in the real world. And he has an impact. He's very powerful, right? Okay. Makes sense? Okay, we'll continue next week. Seeing the Rav's insights. Yeah.
You at one point mentioned there were 5 lessons. I got 4. I had Jew is caught in the middle of world events, geopolitics.
4. There are 4 lessons. There are 4
Okay.
lessons. I said 5. I'm sorry. There are 4 lessons that the Rav learns in that pasuk, right? And we've weaved many more lessons from the Rav's. In other words, just remember, the Rav doesn't read pasuk by pasuk like Rashi. He looks at Gestalt, he sees it, and then we got to take what he had to say. The Rav didn't write a commentary on Chumash. These are all comments that were lifted from his different observations through the years on all over the place. And what I'm trying to do is develop it into one presentation. Okay?
So Malki Tzedek, he was not part of the 4 kings or 5 kings, right?
No, Malki Tzedek is the religious leader. No, he's not.
He's a king,
Right.
but he's not.
He's
one of
he's the religious figure.
Okay.
He's the religious, and he's so impressed with
I
whom.
can't get it back to.
He's right. Right. Okay.
Wasn't
Okay.
Og same from the Mongol? Wasn't Og in the Mongol? And the Mongols supposed to.
Yeah, they're midrashim. They're midrashim. Yes.
Intel, I'm glad.
Thank you, Rabbi.